It began with a sound no one could explain. A sharp noise in the night, somewhere between a door slamming and a gunshot. Quick, hollow, swallowed by silence. The neighbors didn't know it then, but that sound would echo through the heart of Chula Vista for years. It was the moment everything changed for the Millete family. By morning, Maya Millete, a devoted mother of three and a defense contractor for the U.S. Navy, was gone. No note, no sign of struggle. Just a home left frozen in the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. She wasn't the type to vanish. Everyone who knew Maya said that first. She was a planner, the caretaker, the one who remembered birthdays, packed lunches, balanced work, and motherhood like it was an art form. Her energy seemed endless, her warmth magnetic. Even on her busiest days, she found time to text her sisters, to laugh, to ask if they were eating enough. Maya carried other people's burdens as if they were her own. She had a gift for steadiness, a gentle authority that held her family together through every storm. But behind her calm exterior, something fragile had begun to crack. In the months before her disappearance, there were quiet signs, too subtle to raise alarms at first. Fewer posts online, a forced smile in family photos, tense dinners behind closed doors. Her siblings could sense it, even through the polite half-truths she offered on the phone. "Everything's fine," she'd say, her voice soft, her tone clipped, but her pauses said otherwise. Inside the Millete home, that invisible thread holding the family together was beginning to fray. Arguments replaced laughter. Nights stretched long and quiet. And for the first time, Maya started thinking about a word she once feared: divorce. She didn't want to break her family apart. She wanted to save it, or at least save herself. In early January, she reached out to a divorce attorney. Her loved ones later recalled that she sounded relieved, almost light, like someone finally taking a breath after years of holding it in. She wanted peace. She wanted happiness for her children. No one could have imagined that peace would never come. That Thursday felt ordinary to everyone else. Maya finished work, picked up dinner, and moved through her evening routine like any other day. But that night, her phone activity stopped. One last digital heartbeat in the early hours after midnight. Then nothing. Messages went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. The next day, her family started to worry. By the second, they knew something was wrong. When her sister Chris called, there was no answer. By the weekend, panic had replaced hope. They drove to Chula Vista, hearts pounding, eyes scanning the familiar house that suddenly felt alien. Her husband said Maya was resting, that she'd locked herself in a room. But the room was empty, and Maya was nowhere to be found. That's when the world seemed to tilt. Police were called, flyers printed, search parties formed. The calm streets of Chula Vista filled with strangers carrying flashlights and prayer. Her family scoured hiking trails, canyons, deserts, anywhere she might have gone. Every new lead brought a surge of hope, followed by crushing silence. Every night ended the same way, with her sister whispering into the darkness, "Maya, please come home." As days turned into weeks, the details grew darker. Detectives learned of arguments, of tension, of a marriage strained to its limits. They found internet searches about controlling a partner, messages to spellcasters begging for love spells, and curses to keep a wife from leaving. The story shifted from a missing person case to something far more sinister. Neighbors recalled hearing those loud bangs on the night she vanished. Surveillance footage showed movements around the house that didn't make sense. Vehicles repositioned, lights turning off at strange hours. It painted a picture no one wanted to see, a picture of betrayal, of obsession, of a family crumbling behind closed doors. And through it all, Maya's family refused to give up. Every weekend, her siblings led volunteers through ravines and mountains, searching for any trace. They carried her photo on laminated cards, her smile unchanging, eyes bright with life. "We won't stop," Chris told the cameras. "We'll find her. We owe her that." As weeks turned into months, the case drew national attention. Reporters lined the streets, cameras fixed on the quiet house that had once held laughter. The community rallied. People who never met Maya joined the searches, drawn by something deeper than sympathy. They saw themselves in her. A mother, a sister, a friend, a woman who wanted to live freely, and whose voice had been silenced too soon. Still, her family never spoke of her in the past tense. She's not gone. They would say, she's just waiting for us. Each vigil became both a prayer and a protest. Hundreds of candles flickering against the night, the soft murmur of her name carried by wind. The crowd would fall silent, every face reflecting the same thought. How could someone so full of life simply disappear? Even now, the mystery remains. Maya Millete's body has never been found, but her story, her strength, her light, her refusal to fade quietly, continues to burn through every person who searches, every sister who refuses to stop calling her name, because some lights, even when dimmed, never truly go out. They just wait to be found again. It began with a sound no one could explain, a sharp noise in the night, somewhere between a door slamming and a gunshot, quick, hollow, swallowed by silence. The neighbors didn't know it then, but that sound would echo through the heart of Chula Vista for years. It was the moment everything changed for the Millete family. By morning, Maya Millete, a devoted mother of 3 and a defense contractor for the U.S. Navy, was gone. No note, no sign of struggle, just a home left frozen in the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. She wasn't the type to vanish. Everyone who knew Maya said that first. She was a planner, the caretaker, the one who remembered birthdays, packed lunches, balanced work, and motherhood like it was an art form. Her energy seemed endless, her warmth magnetic. Even on her busiest days, she found time to text her sisters, to laugh, to ask if they were eating enough. Maya carried other people's burdens as if they were her own. She had a gift for steadiness, a gentle authority that held her family together through every storm. But behind her calm exterior, something fragile had begun to crack. In the months before her disappearance, there were quiet signs, too subtle to raise alarms at first. Fewer posts online, a forced smile in family photos, tense dinners behind closed doors. Her siblings could sense it, even through the polite half-truths she offered on the phone. "Everything's fine," she'd say, her voice soft, her tone clipped, but her pauses said otherwise. Inside the Millete home, that invisible thread holding the family together was beginning to fray. Arguments replaced laughter. Nights stretched long and quiet. And for the first time, Maya started thinking about a word she once feared: divorce. She didn't want to break her family apart. She wanted to save it, or at least save herself. In early January, she reached out to a divorce attorney. Her loved ones later recalled that she sounded relieved, almost light, like someone finally taking a breath after years of holding it in. She wanted peace. She wanted happiness for her children. No one could have imagined that peace would never come. That Thursday felt ordinary to everyone else. Maya finished work, picked up dinner, and moved through her evening routine like any other day. But that night, her phone activity stopped. One last digital heartbeat in the early hours after midnight. Then nothing. Messages went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. The next day, her family started to worry. By the second, they knew something was wrong. When her sister Maricris called, there was no answer. By the weekend, panic had replaced hope. They drove to Chula Vista, hearts pounding, eyes scanning the familiar house that suddenly felt alien. Her husband said Maya was resting, that she'd locked herself in a room. But the room was empty, and Maya was nowhere to be found. That's when the world seemed to tilt. Police were called, flyers printed, search parties formed. The calm streets of Chula Vista filled with strangers carrying flashlights and prayer. Her family scoured hiking trails, canyons, deserts, anywhere she might have gone. Every new lead brought a surge of hope, followed by crushing silence. Every night ended the same way, with her sister whispering into the darkness, "Maya, please come home." As days turned into weeks, the details grew darker. Detectives learned of arguments, of tension, of a marriage strained to its limits. They found internet searches about controlling a partner, messages to spellcasters begging for love spells, and curses to keep a wife from leaving. The story shifted from a missing person case to something far more sinister. Neighbors recalled hearing those loud bangs on the night she vanished. Surveillance footage showed movements around the house that didn't make sense. Vehicles repositioned, lights turning off at strange hours. It painted a picture no one wanted to see, a picture of betrayal, of obsession, of a family crumbling behind closed doors. And through it all, Maya's family refused to give up. Every weekend, her siblings led volunteers through ravines and mountains, searching for any trace. They carried her photo on laminated cards, her smile unchanging, eyes bright with life. "We won't stop," Chris told the cameras. "We'll find her. We owe her that." As weeks turned into months, the case drew national attention. Reporters lined the streets, cameras fixed on the quiet house that had once held laughter. The community rallied. People who never met Maya joined the searches, drawn by something deeper than sympathy. They saw themselves in her, a mother, a sister, a friend, a woman who wanted to live freely, and whose voice had been silenced too soon. Still, her family never spoke of her in the past tense. "She's not gone," they would say. "She's just waiting for us." Each vigil became both a prayer and a protest. Hundreds of candles flickering against the night, the soft murmur of her name carried by wind. The crowd would fall silent, every face reflecting the same thought. How could someone so full of life simply disappear? Even now, the mystery remains. Maya Millete's body has never been found, but her story, her strength, her light, her refusal to fade quietly, continues to burn through every person who searches, every sister who refuses to stop calling her name. Because some lights, even when dimmed, never truly go out. They just wait to be found again. When someone disappears, time stops for those left behind, but the world keeps moving. Days become hollow things. The same sky, the same roads, only now every sound feels off, every minute longer than it should be. That's how it was for Maya Millete's family in the weeks that followed. Each sunrise brought more volunteers, more flyers, more prayers. But with every nightfall, the truth loomed larger. She was still gone. Her sister Chris kept moving because stopping meant drowning. She became the public face of the search, speaking to reporters, organizing drives, keeping hope alive when everyone else began whispering the word murder. It wasn't defiance that kept her going. It was love, a kind of stubborn devotion that refused to let Maya's name fade into another unsolved case file. The searches began close to home, parks, trails, canyons, anywhere Maya might have gone for space. Then they widened. The foothills, the desert stretches beyond Chula Vista, the rugged terrain near Jamul. Dozens came to help, neighbors, co-workers, complete strangers. Some brought drones, others search dogs. All were driven by the same image, a woman with an open smile and bright eyes who had simply vanished from her own home. But as the volunteers combed through the scrub and dust, detectives were building a quieter, darker map behind the scenes. They were piecing together fragments of her last known movements, reconstructing the final hours before silence fell. Inside the Millete house, the cracks were already showing. Detectives found that Maya's phone had gone dark shortly after midnight, and that her messages to friends had stopped cold. They traced her last known communication, an email to a divorce attorney, and then nothing. Her social media fell silent. Her car stayed parked. Her credit cards untouched. Everything about her life had paused, but no one believed she'd simply walked away. In those early days, her husband Larry's story remained the same. Maya needed time alone. She left on her own terms. But the longer police listened, the more his words began to sound rehearsed. When investigators searched the home, they noticed the small details, the clean garage, the rearranged tools, the eerie sense that something had been scrubbed not just from sight, but from memory. Neighbors told detectives about the noises at night, multiple sharp bangs echoing around dinner time, though no one had called it in at the time. There were also reports of loud arguments in the weeks prior, of tension that had grown so thick you could feel it from across the yard. Forensic technicians began pulling surveillance footage from homes in the area. One camera, positioned across the street, caught Larry's black Lexus SUV backing into the driveway late that night. Rear first, its cargo area now hidden from view. Hours later, the vehicle left again before dawn. Investigators couldn't see what had been placed inside. What they could see was a pattern forming beneath the surface. A man losing control, a woman trying to break free. The evidence was circumstantial but chilling. Larry's search history revealed desperate attempts to win back his wife through supernatural means. Emails to online spellcasters asking for help to make her love me again, make her hurt, make her stay. The language grew darker with time, the tone shifting from pleading to possessive. Detectives later said it read like the journal of a man unraveling. At home, Maya's family refused to let despair swallow them. They organized vigils, fundraisers, and online campaigns. Volunteers handed out candles with her name printed in gold, each flame a promise. We will find you. They held on to small comforts. The sight of her handwriting on old notes, the scent of her perfume lingering on a scarf. Her children, too young to understand fully, still asked when their mother was coming home. There were no answers gentle enough for that question. Weeks turned into months. The search sites multiplied. Barren fields, creek beds, remote trails scattered across San Diego County. In May, a group of volunteers found what they thought were human remains. The hope was immediate and terrible. It wasn't her. Every time the phone rang, the family braced for news. Every time it wasn't, they started over. And through it all, suspicion thickened. By mid-year, detectives had executed over 60 search warrants. They seized digital devices, tracked vehicle routes, and subpoenaed phone data. Bit by bit, they reconstructed the web of communications in the Millete home leading up to that night. Friends told investigators that Maya had become increasingly withdrawn. One confidant revealed a chilling message she'd sent days before she vanished. "If anything happens to me, it's going to be Larry." That message became the spine of the case. Public pressure intensified. The community wanted answers, and the police wanted evidence that could withstand a courtroom. The missing person investigation was quietly shifting toward a homicide inquiry, even without a body. For the family, that shift was both devastating and inevitable. It meant accepting what they had fought so hard to deny, that Maya might not be coming home alive. But Mari Chris refused to give up. "We don't have her body," she told reporters, "but we have her truth." In the background, Larry grew increasingly defensive. He stopped joining searches, declined interviews, and withdrew from public view. His social media posts turned inward, quotes about betrayal and forgiveness, cryptic messages about loyalty. When questioned by police, his answers were vague. He denied any involvement, maintaining that his wife had simply left him. But even his own words began to betray him. In one interview, when asked what he thought had happened to Maya, he said softly, "Maybe she's just not coming back." It wasn't what he said that chilled those listening. It was how he said it, resigned, flat, like a man who already knew. Then came October. The investigation, now sprawling across multiple agencies, reached a breaking point. After 9 months of searches, interviews, and forensic analysis, detectives believed they had enough evidence to move forward. On an otherwise quiet Tuesday morning, Chula Vista police surrounded the Millete residence. Larry Millete was arrested and charged with murder. The announcement rippled to the community like a shockwave. The husband who had once stood in front of cameras asking for privacy was now accused of killing the woman everyone loved. Prosecutors said the motive was control, a man who couldn't stand the thought of losing what he believed he owned. They presented the digital trail, the spellcaster emails, the surveillance footage, and the chilling behavioral shifts leading up to Maya's disappearance. Still, one thing was missing. Her body. It became the heartbreak that defined the case. Without her remains, closure stayed just out of reach. The charges stood. The evidence spoke volumes. But somewhere in the canyons, deserts, or depth of the unknown, the truth waited in silence. Even now, the family continues to search, guided not by certainty but by faith. They visit the trails Maya loved, leaving flowers on stones, whispering her name to the wind. In every candlelight vigil, her smile glows through the posters, a reminder of the woman who brought light wherever she went. Because Maya Millete's story is not just one of loss. It is one of love that refused to disappear, even when she did. And as the trial looms and the years pass, that love remains unbroken, burning quietly, fiercely, in the hearts of those still waiting for her to come home. The morning Larry Millete was arrested, Chula Vista seemed to hold its breath. It wasn't just another crime scene. It was a house everyone had driven past for months, the one they'd seen in every news clip and every vigil. The same driveway where Maya's car sat untouched. The same front door that refused to open to the truth. Now it was surrounded by flashing lights and detectives moving with quiet precision, as though any noise might disturb something sacred. Inside the Millete home, the illusion of normalcy collapsed. Larry stood handcuffed in the hallway where their family portrait still hung, a smiling Maya with their 3 children, frozen in happier years. To the public, it was a striking image. The husband, once pleading for privacy, now accused of killing the woman whose laughter filled those same walls. But for Maya's family, the arrest was not relief. It was heartbreak sharpened by validation. They had known something was terribly wrong from the start. And now the system had finally caught up to what their hearts already knew. When Chula Vista Police Chief Roxana Kennedy stepped before the cameras that day, her voice carried both strength and sorrow. "Today," she said, "we believe we have enough evidence to prove that Larry Millete is responsible for the murder of his wife, Maya." The word murder hung heavy in the air. Even those who had suspected it felt their chests tighten, hearing it said aloud. Behind her, a timeline flashed across the board. Months of surveillance, search warrants, digital data, and expert analysis distilled into a pattern of obsession and control. The prosecution's theory was chillingly clear. Maya had wanted freedom, and Larry couldn't stand to lose her. The cracks that once seemed like marital tension were now seen as warning signs of something darker. Prosecutors revealed that in the weeks before Maya vanished, Larry's online behavior had spiraled into paranoia. He had sent dozens of messages to spellcasters, pleading for magic to keep his wife from leaving, to make her dependent, to punish anyone she was close to. Detectives also uncovered evidence of physical surveillance, tracking devices, screen captures of Maya's online accounts, and thousands of pages of text documenting a marriage collapsing under control. To the investigators, it wasn't one act of violence. It was a slow erosion that ended in silence. Still, for all the evidence, one absence remained the most haunting of all. Maya's body was never found. That absence cast a shadow over everything. Without her remains, there would be no autopsy, no clear cause of death, no physical closure. It meant the entire case hinged on circumstantial evidence, a fragile bridge prosecutors would have to walk carefully. But even in absence, Maya's presence lingered. Her words, captured in messages to friends and relatives, painted a vivid picture of fear and defiance. In one message, she wrote, "He's been manipulating everyone. I just want peace." Days later, she told her sister she was planning to meet with a divorce lawyer. She never made it to that meeting. In the months that followed the arrest, court hearings began to unfold, each one pulling the family through another wave of pain. Maya's relatives sat through proceedings clutching photos of her, the same ones they had carried through the searches. They listened as attorneys argued over discovery, evidence, and digital timelines. They watched Larry appear by video, expressionless, his voice flat. It was a kind of courtroom tension that sits like a ghost, unseen but palpable. The defense claimed there was no proof of murder, no body, no weapon, no confession. They suggested Maya may have run away or taken her own life. But those who knew her rejected that idea outright. She had too much to live for, her children, her career, her plans for the future. She was strong, centered, and unafraid to rebuild if she had to. To those who loved her, the idea of her vanishing voluntarily was not just impossible, it was insulting. The prosecution, led by the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, counted that the digital evidence was undeniable. Larry's phone records showed him in and out of airplane mode on the night she disappeared, briefly connecting the towers near the mountains east of Chula Vista. Forensic analysts found a gap in surveillance footage, a window of hours unaccounted for. In that gap, prosecutors said, is where the truth lies. Each hearing became a collision of grief and evidence. Maya's family on one side, her husband's on the other. The emotional divide stretched through the community, too. Some still clung to doubt, unwilling to believe a father of 3 could do the unthinkable. Others saw in his behavior the unmistakable pattern of control that ends in tragedy. For Mari Chris and the Druillet family, the mission never changed. They didn't just want justice. They wanted Maya home. Even after the arrest, they continued organizing search efforts across San Diego County. They mapped routes, combed canyons, and retraced every trail she had loved. Dozens of volunteers still showed up week after week, many of them strangers who had never met Maya but felt bound to her story. They called these gatherings search weekends. People arrived with gloves, flashlights, drones, and water bottles, determined to cover one more stretch of wilderness. They'd gather at dawn, take group photos holding banners that read, #BringMayaHome, then scatter into the terrain with quiet determination. Some prayed aloud, some walked in silence. Every search ended with the same ritual, a circle of hands, a whispered prayer, and the vow to return. As the months rolled into a second year, the story of Maya Millete became more than a local tragedy. It became a mirror held up to the quiet epidemic of domestic violence and control. Her name became a symbol, her face a rallying cry for those too afraid to speak out. In news broadcasts and vigils, advocates repeated her story as a warning and a call to action. That love should never mean fear, and silence is never protection. In the eyes of her family, that transformation was bittersweet. They wanted her remembered, but not this way. They wanted her laughter, not her loss. Yet they carried that pain with grace, turning grief into advocacy. When journalists interviewed Chris, her composure was steady, but her voice trembled at times. She was strong, she said softly. She would have fought. That's why we're still fighting for her. That strength defined Maya in life, and it defined her story after. Friends describe her as the kind of woman who didn't crumble under pressure, who balanced motherhood and career with unflinching love. She worked as a civilian employee for the Navy, respected by her peers and adored by her children. Her family called her their rock, the center that held everyone together. Losing her was like losing the sun. But even suns leave light after they set. Each time her name was said in court, each time a candle flickered at a vigil, Maya's light persisted. Proof that even in tragedy, love leaves a trace the dark cannot erase. By late 2023, the case had evolved into one of California's most closely followed trials in waiting. Forensic experts continued examining data, while the community awaited what they hoped would be justice. The prosecution prepared its arguments. The defense clung to its denials. But no matter what happened inside that courtroom, the truth of Maya Millete's life, her strength, her love, her resilience, was already carved into the hearts of those who refused to let her story end in silence. Because for Maya's family, justice isn't just a verdict. It's a promise to keep her name alive until the day her body is found, until her children understand how deeply she was loved, and until every woman who fears her own silence finds strength in Maya's voice. And as the trial looms, that voice, quiet, unwavering, echoes through every prayer, every search, every heartbeat that still whispers her name. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes after years of waiting. It's not peaceful. It hums, low and restless, like an engine that never shuts off. That's the sound that fills the lives of the Millete family now. 3 years have passed since Maya vanished from her home in Chula Vista. The case has moved from the chaos of the search to the slow machinery of the courtroom. And yet, for her family, time hasn't moved at all. Every calendar date feels stuck on January 7th, 2021, the night everything froze. The trial hasn't begun, but its shadow looms over everything. Each hearing, each filing, each motion stretches a distance between loss and closure. Larry Millete remains behind bars, charged with murder and illegal possession of assault weapons. He has pleaded not guilty. To the outside world, he's a defendant. To Maya's family, he's the last person who saw her alive. Courtrooms are places where truth moves slowly. Evidence is dissected, language measured, emotion restrained. But for Maya's family, each hearing is another wound reopened. They sit in the same rows every time. Maya's parents, sibling, and relatives wearing purple shirts, her favorite color, with the words #JusticeForMaya printed in white. They clutch photos of her smiling face, their expressions a mixture of strength and exhaustion. When Larry is brought in, the air changes. He walks with that same quiet composure that unsettled investigators years ago, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to meet theirs. The courtroom falls still, the hum of air conditioning and shuffling papers the only sounds. Behind a mask of legal formality lies an ocean of grief. For Maya's sister, Chris, every court date is another test of endurance. She has become both advocate and anchor for family, a role she never asked for but refuses to abandon. When she speaks to reporters outside the courthouse, her tone is steady, but her eyes betray the sleepless nights. "We're just asking for justice," she says. "For answers." For Maya. And in those few words, the weight of an entire family's heartbreak is contained. The prosecution continues to build its case. Dozens of search warrants, phone records, forensic reports, and expert analyses, all forming a web that points toward control, obsession, and violence. Prosecutors call it a murder of intent. Maya didn't simply vanish. They argue she was erased. But the defense leans on absence. No body, no confession, no eyewitness. They insist the state is building a narrative, not a case. They suggest Maya may have chosen to disappear, that her life had pressures no one knew. To the Millete family, that argument cuts deep because they knew her. They knew her warmth, her laughter, her fierce devotion to her children. They knew the kind of woman who wouldn't leave without a goodbye. It's in these contrasts, the logic of law against the certainty of love, that the trial seems to stall, endlessly circling without closure. Meanwhile, the community hasn't forgotten. Candlelight vigils still glow at the Chula Vista Community Park, the air heavy with songs, prayers, and soft whispers of her name. Volunteers still gather for search efforts in the canyons and desert stretches east of San Diego. Even now, strangers walk those trails, scanning the earth for any sign, any fragment, any trace of her. In those quiet landscapes, you can feel it, the devotion that refuses to fade. They search because her family still searches. They search because love demands it. And while the courtroom arguments continue, Maya's family channels their pain into purpose. They've turned her story into a mission, speaking out for victims of domestic abuse and coercive control. They attend awareness events, partner with advocacy groups, and share Maya's story as both warning and tribute. She was strong, her sister says often. She was the one who held us together. Now it's our turn to hold her up. The irony is bitter. It takes losing someone like Maya to reveal how many others have suffered in silence. Her case became a mirror for thousands of women trapped in relationships that look perfect from the outside. It became a national conversation about the red flags of manipulation and emotional isolation. Her name now stands alongside those of other women who vanished under hauntingly similar circumstances. Each one a reminder that love, when warped by control, can turn lethal. The prosecution continues to reveal new details. Search warrant unsealed, evidence logs released. Investigators tracked Larry's car movements the night Maya disappeared. Cell tower pings, unexplained gaps, hours unaccounted for. They found multiple unregistered firearms, including illegal assault weapons. They found hundreds of deleted text messages, some recovered, others lost forever. And though the pieces don't form a complete picture, they form a silhouette, a chilling outline of what may have happened in that house. In late 2024, a motion to delay the trial was filed again, citing ongoing evidence review. Each delay feels like a fracture in time. The family sits through it all, quietly praying that one day, the truth will have its day in court. But justice, as they've learned, doesn't move with emotion. It crawls through the language of law. Still, they wait, and they do so with grace. Through all of it, the Millete children have remained the heart of this story. 3 young souls caught between loss and memory. Their mother's face, once a daily presence, now lives in photographs and stories. The family shields them as best they can, raising them with love, with the truth told gently. Your mom was brave, they tell them. She loved you more than anything. There's a power in that, the way a family can hold love like a shield against the worst kind of darkness. They've kept the traditions alive. Birthdays, holidays, even small rituals like lighting candles in her favorite color. In every act of remembrance, Maya's strength breathes again. And so, the courtroom becomes only part of the story. The real story continues outside its walls, in every vigil, every search, every moment her family speaks her name aloud. Because the truth about Maya Millete is this: she wasn't just a victim of tragedy. She was a woman who loved fiercely, who worked hard, who dreamed of a better life for her children. She was strength personified, and even now, that strength radiates through those who refuse to let her story end. The trial may never truly end, not in spirit. Even when the verdict comes, whether months or years from now, there will still be a part of her missing, but the love that surrounds her has become something indestructible. Proof that even when justice moves slowly, love moves forever. And as the cameras fade and the legal arguments turn into transcripts, the story of Maya Millete endures, not as a mystery, but as a legacy of courage, of family, and of the unbreakable bond between sisters who refuse to let silence have the last word. Grief has a way of reshaping the air around it. It lingers, invisible but heavy, filling rooms, car rides, and quiet nights. For Maya Millete's family, that weight never lifted. It just changed form, turning from pain into purpose, from heartbreak into something sacred. By the third year after her disappearance, the search for Maya had transformed into something larger than a hunt for remains. It had become a movement. Across California, people wore purple ribbons in her honor, her name inked on posters, shirts, and banners that read, "Bring Maya home." Each weekend, volunteers still gathered in the early morning hours, flashlights in hand, hearts heavy but steady. They drove out to the deserts, the mountain trails, and the remote ravines of Southern California, scanning every rock and crevice with quiet determination. Some were friends, many were strangers, but all of them felt the same pull, to help a woman they'd never met, but somehow knew. The search site stretched for miles, Otay Mountain, Jamul, Dolzura, and beyond. The terrain was unforgiving, cliffs, brush, and sun-baked earth. But that didn't stop them. People knelt in the dust, calling softly into the silence, "Maya, we're here." Sometimes they found nothing. Sometimes they found hope. At every gathering, her sister Maricris stood before the group, thanking them, her voice cracking but her spirit unbroken. "We don't know where she is," she would say, "but she's out there somewhere, and she deserves to come home." Her words carried a quiet power, the kind born not of certainty, but of faith. The Millete family had long accepted that Maya might be gone, but they refused to accept that her story would end in mystery. For them, finding her wasn't about justice anymore. It was about love. Love that demanded a resting place. Love that needed to know. Their devotion drew attention far beyond Chula Vista. Reporters from Dateline NBC, 48 Hours, and other national outlets came to tell Maya's story. Her face appeared on screens across the country, her disappearance joining the painful list of missing women whose stories had shaken America. Yet even amid the media spotlight, her family stayed grounded in their purpose. They didn't want fame, they wanted answers. And in the midst of all the noise, there was still that haunting quiet. No new leads, no remains, no closure. Detectives continued to process evidence, reviewing tips and combing through digital records. Every once in a while, a new search warrant would make headlines. Police revisiting a storage unit, scanning a new stretch of land. But as time passed, those moments grew fewer. And the family, once surrounded by crowds, learned the loneliness of long-term hope. Still, they endured. When the world's attention drifted, they kept searching. When public interest waned, they lit their own candles. On every anniversary, they gathered by the shore or in the park, releasing lanterns into the night sky. Each glowing light represented a promise that Maya's name would never be forgotten. Children clutched pictures of her smiling face. Friends read poems, recalling her laughter, her love of travel, her fierce independence. She loved deeply. One of her closest friends once said, "You could feel it when she hugged you. It was like being seen completely." That memory became their compass. It reminded them who they were searching for, not a victim, but a vibrant woman who once filled rooms with energy and light. A mother who lived for her children. A sister who always showed up. A woman who believed in the kind of love that heals, not harms. As the years unfolded, Maya's legacy began to take shape. Her family launched campaigns to support victims of domestic violence and missing persons. They spoke at community events, using her story to educate others about the dangers of coercive control, the invisible kind of abuse that leaves no bruises but slowly erodes the spirit. They partner with local law enforcement, women's advocacy organizations, and survivor networks. They raise funds to support search operations and provide resources for families enduring the same nightmare. In time, their message became universal. Speak up. Don't wait. Love shouldn't hurt. For Mari Chris and her siblings, advocacy became survival. It was the only way to keep moving forward, to transform pain into purpose. They carried her photo everywhere, her smile now symbolic of both loss and hope. She's not here, her sister once said in an interview, but she's still changing lives. And she was. Across California, survivors began reaching out. Women who saw their own stories reflected in Maya's. Women who said her courage, even in silence, helped them walk away before it was too late. Maya's absence had become a light, illuminating what too often remains unseen. But for all the good her legacy inspired, the ache remained constant. The simplest things became reminders. Her favorite song play on the radio, a scent that lingered, the sound of children laughing. Her parents often visited the ocean, the place Maya loved most. They would stand by the waves, their hands clasped, whispering prayers to the wind. Come home, Anik, her mother would say in Tagalog. We're still waiting. That devotion, quiet, steadfast, eternal, became the heartbeat of the story. Not vengeance, not anger, just love refusing to fade. In moments of reflection, even investigators admitted the case haunted them. One detective, speaking off record, said, "You can't work on a case like Maya's and leave it behind. You see her face everywhere." And that was true. In murals, in vigils, in the glow of candles that never seemed to burn out, Maya's presence lived on. Her strength had become legend, not in a distant or abstract way, but in the small human moments. Her laughter caught in home videos, her handwritten notes still tucked into drawers, the way her children still say her name like it's magic. Because for all the headlines and hearings, this story was never just about a disappearance. It was about a family's unbreakable love, about a community that refused to give up, about a woman whose spirit was too fierce to be silenced by violence. As the trial loomed closer, the Millete family began preparing for what might be the hardest chapter yet. They knew that no verdict could bring her back. But they also knew that justice wasn't only about punishment. It was about truth, about giving her voice back after it had been taken away. The truth, after all, is what Maya had always fought for. In her career, in her marriage, in her dreams for her children. She sought peace through honesty. And though she never got the chance to live that peace, her family vowed to carry it forward. Each candle they lit became a quiet declaration of defiance against the darkness. We still believe in light. And as the cameras turned elsewhere, as the world moved on to other stories, the Millete family continued to whisper her name into the quiet spaces of the earth. Maya, mother, sister, daughter, light. Her story had become timeless, not just because of how she died, but because of how fiercely she was loved. The weeks turned to months, then years. Time passed differently for Maya's family, not in days or hours, but in searches in press briefings and silent nights where her children still asked when their mother would come home. The house that once echoed with laughter now carried the rhythm of unanswered prayers. The walls still held her photographs, her voice on old videos, her plans scribbled in notebooks. Maya Millete was gone, but she refused to fade. Her family built their lives around her absence, refusing to surrender to it. Every sunrise was a reminder, not of loss, but of unfinished love. They searched every canyon, every ravine, every forgotten trail. Volunteers combed to the wild edges of San Diego County, tracing her last known steps, guided by faith and heartbreak. They would not let her story become another statistic. Not Maya. She had fought for her education, her career, her family. She had built a life from dedication and courage. It wasn't in her nature to vanish quietly. Larry Millete remained behind bars, awaiting trial. His once proud confidence replaced with the silence of a man cornered by truth. The prosecution's case painted a portrait of obsession and control, of a husband who could not stand to lose what he believed was his. Yet beyond the courtroom, the public saw something larger, a reflection of every woman who had tried to leave and never got the chance. Maya's name became a rallying cry, a symbol for those whose voices were silenced inside their own homes. Through it all, her sister Maricris became her shield, her advocate, her voice. Every interview, every vigil, every search was carried out with Maya's strength shining through her. She spoke to reporters with a trembling but unbroken conviction, often saying, "We will bring her home, one way or another." Those words became a mantra, whispered by friends, shared by strangers, printed on signs carried into the hills. As the investigation deepened, new evidence painted an even darker story. The messages of jealousy, the obsession with spells meant to control love, the chilling confessions from those who'd seen the warning signs too late. The portrait of Maya that emerged from it all was one of defiance, a woman who had tried to stand tall in the storm, whose disappearance forced a reckoning far beyond one family's grief. In Chula Vista, the community began gathering every year at sunset. They brought candles, flowers, and framed photos of Maya smiling, the same radiant smile that had brightened every room. Children played near the memorials, unaware of the shadow that once fell over their town. Mothers clasped their daughters' hands a little tighter. Husbands stood silently beside their wives. The air always carried a quiet reverence, not for tragedy itself, but for the strength Maya left behind. In time, Maya's family launched the Justice for Maya Foundation, not just to honor her memory, but protect others. They turned pain into purpose, channeling grief into education, awareness, and advocacy for victims of domestic violence. Every time a survivor found courage to speak, every time a woman walked away from danger before it was too late, Maya's spirit lived again. And yet, beneath the light of every candle, one truth lingered. Her body had never been found. The question of where it remained unanswered, suspended in the quiet between wind gusts and rustling leaves. For her family, closure was a horizon they could see but not reach. Still, they pressed on because Maya would have. Late at night, Maricris sometimes stood on her porch, eyes tracing the stars. Somewhere, she felt, Maya was near, not lost, not gone, but transformed. The laughter of her children, the unity of her community, the strength of every woman she inspired, all of it was Maya. The story of Maya Millete was no longer just a mystery. It became a movement, a reminder that behind every headline lies a heartbeat. Behind every missing person's name is a story of love, resilience, and human spirit. Maya was more than a case. She was a mother, a wife, a sister, a friend. And though she vanished into a January night, her light remained. When the candles flicker in Chula Vista each year, they burn not just for justice, but for the enduring strength of a woman who refused to be forgotten. For in the silence that follows every vigil, in the whispers of her name carried by the wind, there's one thing that even time cannot erase. Maya Millete still lives in the hearts of those who loved her,